Everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Eric McGrew, and today I'm going to be doing something very different than anything I've done on the channel before. If you've been around my channel for a while, you'll know that I'm really into things like mechanical stuff in general, equipment, tools, that kind of stuff, modifying and fabricating. I definitely in the past year or so got heavy into the tree service stuff, which I'm still into, so don't run away from my channel just because I'm doing a different video build series. I'll still be putting out the tree service stuff, and I will also be coming out with more Forerunner videos here soon. Something that you may not know as much about, if you've seen my videos inside the house, you'll know that my wife and I really like vintage, mid-century modern things. And that definitely is no different with styling of motor vehicles when I can make them practical. This, however, is not my style. It's not a bad bike, but there's a lot of things about it that make it not for me. However, it is a good base for a modified custom bike. I'm not going to divulge my full potential of what this bike will become, but I will start off with saying it's going to get heavily modified. As you can see, it's not a bad looking bike. It's a traditional beach cruiser. I originally had intended on getting a Huffy Cranbrook, which is a popular build base for lots of different lowrider bikes and just customized beach cruisers. Most customized bikes that are super stylish come from the beach cruiser lines just because of the sleek and extended links and the angles that they have and different things like that. Now, my goal for this bike is not to be quite this 50s and rounded out. It's going to be something very different. The other thing about this bike is that it's a Huffy, and it's a Walmart bike. So if you look right here, I bought this bike for $128. It was on sale. This bike usually runs around $140, and Nel Lusso, I want to say, I don't remember what language it is, but it's supposed to mean deluxe. And the language is it Italian? Yeah, I think it's Italian. And so they do this. Now, you'll see a couple of things that are definitely issues with this bike to begin with. One is that it says right there that it's not my size, C52 to 5'10". Well, I'm 6'2", and they aren't lying. This bike does not fit me. So as a cyclist, you know, riding mountain bikes and things, this would never be the bicycle I would buy to actually be comfortable on for a regular fit. But with my purposes in mind, it will work just fine. The second thing about this bike, well, there's a number of things. One is that it's very heavy, like a good 35 pounds, maybe 40. It's heavy. It's all steel, which is why I bought it, because I can weld on it and cut it and different things like that. But another challenge with these bikes is that they have a 1-inch steer tube, which is not the industry standard as a general rule for upgrades and performance parts. Your standard bike now has a 1 1/8 minimal steer tube, but a lot of the newer ones are going to the tapered, which is 1 1/2, I want to say. So you are becoming a little bit more limited in what you can buy, even though the threaded 1-inch does have some parts out there. You can buy like suspension shocks and even a few triple tree forks for it, suspension and non-suspension. But the interesting thing is that there is a company called Genuine Bike Parts, I want to say, that builds a machined cap for the top and bottom that will allow a number of bikes like the old Schwinn's, and I'm pretty sure this one, to run 1 1/8 steer tube forks. So I might be going into that, but what I'm more interested in is probably building my own forks. So we'll be going over that. I've got a couple of concepts for some suspension ones and some non-suspension ones. We'll see which one I end up with, or maybe both at some point. And the other thing about this bike is that it has Huffy branding all over it. It's got a Huffy placard here, which is just like a piece of plastic that's been chromed with a piece of, I don't even know, I think that's plastic. So this whole unit here is plastic with some metal tabs. It's, you know, got a Huffy seat. The pedals are like the cheapest plastic ever. The kickstand, you definitely couldn't, like as a kid I remember putting the kickstand down and sitting on the bike. Yeah, I'm too heavy for that now. It just wants to fold back. So the kickstand's not real great. It has a really, really manly basket on the front. Tell you what, and it's also branded Huffy. You know, you've got a Huffy sticker, because, you know, as nice as this bike looks, you would think they would actually put like a metal emblem on the front. Nope, it's just a sticker. It's not it's a foil sticker, so it has a little bit of chrome look to it. The chain guard says Huffy on it, and it's super, super thin. And then, you know, this rack here actually isn't that bad because I've got some plans for it. And then you've got your fenders on it, right? The cranks, the actual good thing about the cranks is that they will be comparable to like a lot of BMX bike cranks, which run that standard size. And so you can swap them out with a number of cool looking cranks that will match the style that I'm going to end up going with. Now, it's also got a cup holder, which really not stable on here and really not beneficial for me at all. So that's all to be known. The other thing is that so I know some guys are building these into the motorized bikes, like a gas powered or a electric bike, and they say that the wheels and the hubs actually hold up okay. I mean, some dudes are doing like 50 miles an hour on these things, so that's, you know, I don't know about that, but it's a decent base to start with. And the seat here is a Springer seat, like the bobbers and things, but the springs are so soft that when I sit down, I'm like full compression. So they don't really add much comfort because, well, I'm at full compression. And then the other thing is that it's a coaster brake bike. So you may be asking, why in the world, if it's got all these less than ideal parts on it, did I buy the bike? Well, one is that it was cheap. Two is that it's a good base for what I'm about to do. If you're a lighter guy, I'm like 212 pounds, the seat probably wouldn't compress completely, so it would give you a little bit of suspension on that. And three is that it has general lines that make it good for what I want to do with it, okay? But in these next few episodes, what we're going to go over are some basic mods to make this thing look better with little to no money spent. In fact, the first mod that we're going to do will be no money at all. So we're going to get into that here in the next episode. But here's the bike. Here is some views of what it looks like in its factory form. And we are going to start from here and make it something very, very different. So I hope that you guys subscribe to the channel. Please don't forget to like, comment, and share. And come back, see what I'm doing with the bike. If you're not into bikes, maybe you'll get into bikes like this. If you are into bikes, maybe this will give you guys some ideas of how you can make budget mods that are actually pretty interesting and will be worth maybe doing on your own builds. So I'll give you a heads up right now. Few good tools to have around are some a drill, of course, angle grinder, a Dremel tool of some sort if you have that, and then just, you know, if you know how to weld, that will come in handy. So one thing to know is that this is a fully rigid bike. For my intents and purposes, that will go away. It will become suspension oriented in at least one component at first, and then eventually it'll become suspension in two components. Well, I should take that back. It's not fully rigid. It has a suspension seat on it, right? Not really. So if you don't like full suspension, I mean, if you don't like fully rigid bikes, then this is not the one for you. Anything can be changed, but it does take money and effort to make something suspension oriented. The most basic shocks on eBay or Amazon for mountain bikes are still somewhere between the $50 and $75 range minimal, and then you get on up into like $400 shocks if you really want suspension shocks that are high quality. So know that suspension forks, minimal with shipping and everything, the minimal I've found is about $80. So that's something to keep in mind. So if you don't want to spend extra money, which would put this bike already into the $200, $250 range with the suspension, you need to look at something that is suspension oriented. Now, one thing to know is that this is a steel framed bike, so you can cut and weld on it. Whereas like aluminum frame bikes, you can't do that unless you know how to weld aluminum, and I don't have the aluminum welding setup, which is why I started with this bike here. But I'm really getting into this. I most likely will start building my own chassis in the future, but we're going to start with this one, and we're going to go over what can be done with it to make it really interesting. So thanks for stopping by, and I'll see you in the next video.